Have you ever asked yourself, I wonder what the most interesting readings Claire has ever given are? Well, on today's episode, I'm actually going to share some of the most fascinating, emotional, or unexpected bits of evidence or insights that I have ever received during a reading. So welcome back to the Ultra Aligned podcast. I'm so excited that you're here with me today. If you're new here, my name is Claire Kellums. I'm a psychic medium and intuitive guide, and I love sharing stories and experiences of the things that I have experienced in my lifetime that got me to where I am today. So before we dive into today's episode, I actually wanted to share with you guys about the mic check retreat. I just got back. Well, it's been a couple days now, but I'm having major mic check retreat depression, guys. I had so much fun. It was so awesome to be able to connect with everyone I did and to hear their stories and to hear them talk about their podcasts and how they've grown their podcast. You might notice that there's no longer an intro on this podcast. That's something that I was thinking about taking out. Didn't really know what to do with it, but I learned some pretty awesome tools at the mic check retreat, and now we have cut out the intro. And so this is our new intro. I love it. I'm excited about it. And so I'm just really excited to share and to integrate all the exciting, fun things that I learned at the retreat, to grow the podcast, to expand, to share with others. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive into today's episode. So to set the scene a little bit, it's always important to know that every reading looks different for every person. No two readings will be the same. And so it's also really important to remember that going into a reading with certain expectations can sometimes be a little challenging because spirit will bring through whatever is meant for your highest good in that moment. I would also like to just emphasize that confidentiality is super important to me. So I'm going to keep details very limited to only a few bits of information, and no names will be shared in this for confidentiality, privacy reasons. But some of these were so incredible and so magical to me and to the client that it's too good. It's too good not to share. So one of the first stories I'm going to share with you guys today, we're going to take it all the way back to the early days of my development. I was practicing with someone who was also practicing to be a medium, and we were instructed by our mentor at the time to give each other a name to try to connect with that person. So it was my turn, and my partner gave me a name of someone she wanted me to try to connect with. And so I got this person to come through, and I knew it was a grandmother or a grandmother figure of some nature or a grandparent of some nature, and it ended up being her great-grandmother that I was connecting with. I was bringing through a little bit of information, but not very much. But I kept getting the image of a pig, and specifically a pig. And I told her that, and I was sharing with her that they kept bringing through a pig, and I asked, did they raise animals? Did they have pigs? Did they raise pigs? And she assured me that no, they were actually incredibly poor, and they could not afford animals. They could not afford to raise animals, so they would not have had animals to her knowledge that they would have been raising. But the pig was very specific. And so I left it with her and I just said, you just keep this with you. I don't know what it means, but there's something about a pig. So the very next day, I receive an email from this person. And in the email, she said, hey, Claire, I just wanted to share with you that I actually went home and asked my mother about this pig that you were telling me about since you were so adamant about it. And my mother told me that my great-grandparents were incredibly poor. They didn't have any money. But when they got married, someone gifted them a pig as a wedding present. And I remember reading that and just grinning ear to ear because I was so blown away by that evidence that came through and how incredible it was that it happened. And I remember thinking in that moment, there is something out there. There is something more than just this human existence. There is something out there. There is a universe. There is a higher power. There is something else out there. And how incredible it was to be able to be connected to that. And so that moment was when I was hooked as a medium because it was so incredible and so validating. And I actually printed that email out and I kept it because it was the first real bit of information of validation that I had ever received. The second story I'll share with you guys is a little bit more of an emotional one. Just trigger warning for the entire episode. I do talk about loss. I do talk about sudden passing. So just fair warning, and I'll kind of throw in those trigger warnings too, again, when I get closer to that time, if I feel there needs to be one. But recently I was connecting with someone, a client who had lost their grandfather. And I had asked when we sat down, I felt there was a grandfather presence and this person validated it for me. And so I was connecting with the grandfather and we were a little bit into the session and the grandfather kept taking me back to his funeral, specifically his funeral. And I couldn't quite figure out why he was taking me there, but I knew it had some importance. So after a little while, I finally got a bit of information through that I felt there was someone at his funeral specifically asking, "Where did you go?" And so I asked the client, I said, "I don't know if this was you asking or someone else asking, but I feel that someone at his funeral was asking, 'Where did you go?'" And the client got very emotional and actually shared with me that it was him at the funeral, and his specific question at his funeral was, "Where did you go?" It wasn't, "Where are you? Where are there? Is there somewhere else that you are? Is there heaven? Is there this?" It was specifically, "Where did you go?" And the client actually also shared with me that he made a music video or a music documentary, I can't remember exactly what it was, of some nature. And the title was something along the lines of, "Where did you go?" And he shared with me that that was a very specific question that he would ask is, "Where did you go?" And so that was incredibly validating as well. And something that happened that was even more magical than that was the release and the emotion felt by that client, because you could tell in that moment that that was that key evidence that he needed to know that his grandfather was still with him and was still around him. And so that was a very beautiful moment for me and for that client, because he had that validation that his grandfather was still around and was absolutely still present in his life. Another really beautiful experience that I had was for a client who had lost her brother. And she was asking me about her brother and if he was still around, if he was near her, if he knew what was going on. And I kept getting something very specific. And it was specifically lilies. And I kept seeing lilies. I kept hearing the word lilies. And I kind of put a pause on it because I thought it was for something else. So I kept going with the session, which learning lesson for me is just say when it comes through. After a while of connecting with her brother, I finally just asked her, I said, "Do you have any connections with lilies?" And she audibly gasped and said, "Yes, lilies were our wedding flowers, mine and my husband's wedding flowers. And I had just planted lilies in the backyard." And a message came through that to this day, I get covered in cold chills when I remember it. The message that came through was, "I will meet you at the lilies." She had been asking specifically before that if her brother was still around, if he still was around the family, if he knew what was going on. And when she told me that she had just planted those lilies, that message came through so quickly. And I am pretty good about not getting too emotional during readings because it's my job to be able to interpret and communicate. And if I'm overly emotional, I won't be able to do it as well. But when that message came through, I was slammed with such intense emotion that I could hardly get the words out myself. And it was so clear as day, "Meet me at the lilies." And the message was, whenever you're having a hard day or a hard time or you're thinking of me, meet me at the lilies and I'll be there with you. And that was so powerful and so incredible to be able to communicate that to someone. And it meant so much to her, you could tell, and it meant so much for her brother in spirit to be able to share that message with her. So that was really incredible. So I actually had a reading a few months back with someone, and when I went into the reading, I felt a little more sombersome, a little more sadness than I usually do. Not that I don't feel sadness with other readings or anything like that, but this one was pretty intense for me. And when I went into this reading, after a little bit went by, I realized I was connected to this person's son. And she ended up telling me that it was her adult son that had passed, and it had been less than 10 years that he had passed, and it was still, obviously still very fresh and still very, very hard for her as a mother. I mother myself, I couldn't imagine. And so we were connecting, and he was to this day, such a beautiful energy to connect with. I could not stop giggling, and I felt so much love. And his mother was telling me that's who he was, and that's who he was living. He was so funny. He had a beautiful sense of humor. He was so loving. He was so caring. And the whole time I wanted to giggle and smile so much because he was such a beautiful, bright light of energy. It was incredible. And I kept bringing through a memorial or a naming after him of some nature. And she had informed me that there was a scholarship named after him that students receive. I don't remember exactly where it was or what it was for, but there was a scholarship that students would receive in his name, in her son's name. And in that moment she told me that, I got a name come through. And it came through so instantaneously. And I shared that name with her. And she got quiet and she said, that's the name of the boy who just won the scholarship this year. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. That's amazing. And I continued on and I started giggling, and I couldn't hardly stop giggling because he was just so cute, and he was so kind and loving. And he brought through a message of, Mom, you need to get different cards. And I kind of shared that with her, and I asked her, I said, are you using oracle cards or tarot cards of some nature? And she explained that she was, but she didn't really resonate with them. And she started laughing. She was like, that's something he would typically say, was like, oh, you need to get something different. And I told her that. I said, he is saying get different cards. And actually this person messaged me not long ago, and she told me, she said, I took his advice and I got different cards, and I resonate with them so much, and I use them so much more now, and they're awesome, and I love them. And she thanked me. And you might not think it was that big of a deal, but to her it was. And to be able to connect with her son and know that he is absolutely so present in her life, to the fact that he knows she needs different oracle cards. It was so much fun. It was so incredible. One of the final experiences I'm going to share with you guys today happened more recently. And it was a beautiful, validating moment that happened so quickly. And I'm so grateful that I was there to experience it, because it happened so fast. And so I was speaking with this lady, and she was explaining to me that she was in a group that did daily card pulls, or I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was a card that day that resonated with her, and it had a butterfly on it. And she explained to me that the butterfly that was on that card reminded her of a butterfly that connected her to her grandfather when she was little. And she was asking me some questions about mediumship and just how I work and the abilities just in general. And so I was explaining to her how I worked, explaining to her about signs, validations, etc. And she was talking to me about this butterfly and how it reminded her of a butterfly, again, that resonated with her grandfather when she was little. And we're talking about it, and I was explaining to her if that resonated with her, to use butterflies as a sign from her grandfather. And we talked a little bit longer, and then she ended up sharing all this information with another friend. And we were all sitting there at the table together, and she was explaining to this other friend about what I had just shared about the butterfly and how she's going to start asking for butterflies as signs from her grandfather. And we're having this conversation. And lo and behold, we're outside, and a butterfly comes out of nowhere and circles her, and just circles her. No one else, just circled her and flew away. I was so completely mind blown. I was so glad I was there to experience that. Everyone just like went silent. This butterfly, it didn't go around anyone else. It went straight to her. It flew around her and just flew off. And that was so, I still get goosebumps talking about it because it was so cool. And it just goes to show that they can validate and show you signs very quickly. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time, but other times when they really want to get your attention, they'll show you those signs. And it's really important to know this is kind of a message they're bringing through right now. They're saying, don't force the signs. If you have a sign for someone, say your sign is pennies, don't go to the bank and ask for a handful of pennies and say, that's my sign. Those signs come when you need them the most. And that's the beauty. That's the magic in those signs, is they show you when you need them the most, or they show you when you are on the right path, or where they're trying to guide you into the right path. So don't force the signs. Allow the signs to come to you naturally, because that's when the most magic is behind them. So don't be afraid to ask for a specific sign, whatever it is that resonates with you. Cardinals, for example, are my sign from my loved ones that I'm on the right path, or that I'm in the right direction, or just to honestly come in and say, hi, we're here with you today. Like, we know you're having a hard day. We're here with you. And so pick a sign that resonates the most with you and with your loved one in spirit, and just go with it, and just say, universe, spirit, loved ones, I'm open to receiving a sign today. And that's all you have to do. And if it comes in, it comes in. And maybe it'll come in on a different day. But remember, it's going to come in when you need it the most. So again, something I like to say when I wake up in the mornings is, universe, I am open to receiving a sign today. And just be open to whatever comes in, to anything. And notice if you resonate with it. If you see something and you think, oh, that reminds me of this, follow that. Remember that. Journal that. Document that. And follow those little synchronicities. It's beautiful. And so I just want to remind you all that your loved ones really are always around you. They're always with you, and they see those things happening in your life. They're around you. They want to be in co-creation with you. The universe wants to create magic with you, and your loved ones want to back you 100% with it. One of my favorite things that Spirit will show me when I'm giving a reading for someone who may be having a more difficult time or may not know the path that they're on, whatever it may be, they will actually show me as a line behind the person. They will line up behind this person, and that is my validation that they support this person and that they are with this person 100%. And it's so beautiful every single time to see how much love that a person has that they might not be able to see, that may not physically be on this earth anymore, but are absolutely still with them all the time. It's so magical. So I really just want to encourage you to stay open to receiving signs, stay open to being curious, stay open to questioning things, tapping into that inner child and being so curious. You know, kids are always curious. They're running around, they're touching everything, they're putting things in their mouth, they're doing crazy things, but they're so curious. Tap into that curiosity and really run with it and see where it takes you, because that curiosity ignites that creativity. And when you ignite that creativity, gosh, there's so much you can do with that. So I hope you enjoyed this episode today. I was really excited to share it with you guys. And so if you have any experiences from your own readings that you've had that you would like to share, please feel free to DM me on Instagram or send me an email at theultralinepodcast@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you guys. You can leave a review, a comment, anything. I love hearing about your experiences. It lights me up so much inside. It makes me so excited to hear about those experiences that you had, those interesting, validating moments that you had, those crazy readings that were super evidence-backed. I love to hear all about it. So please feel free to share if you feel called to do so. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and close this episode out. I hope you have an amazing day wherever you are, and I will see you next time on the next episode. Bye, guys.